human traffic. The purpose of this clip is to give you an overview of the material that we will be covering in our class. Naturally, we're going to begin with the ancient world. One can see from this small illustration that slaves come in a variety of genders and colors. So what we mean here is that one could be of there's not one specific race that is or represents slavery in the ancient world, and by the same token there's not a specific gender. In the ancient world, it was not uncommon for someone to be a slave owner on Wednesday and to be a slave themselves by the weekend, dependent upon a battle and its outcome. If one was very well educated, one might become a slave within a household, perhaps tutoring the children of the slave owner. Or if one was unfortunate, one might become a warrior or work as a gladiator. Another kind of slavery that we don't always consider is wage slavery. In this image we see a young woman. The image is taken by Louise Hine from the late 19th century. She's working in a mill, and you can see that she's trapped between the mill and the window, which is grimy and dirty. She gives us a straight, full frontal view, and in the image she's telling us basically, I'm here, I'm stuck, you should help me. Now, wage slavery isn't something that is only from the past. In fact, we have wage slavery today. In the Dominican Republic, there are a number of people, individuals from Haiti, who left the country illegally and therefore have no papers, who have come to work in the Dominican Republic in the cane fields. They live within batailles, which virtually create wage slavery, as in they cannot leave or return to Haiti as they have no papers. Of course, one can't deal with human traffic without dealing with the American slave trade. We will spend a considerable amount of our course dealing with this. We'll look at the consequences of the slave trade and the contentious ways in which it's been dealt with. One of the interesting assignments that you'll be able to do will be to read a slave account. So we have actual accounts that slaves wrote themselves. Some have been taught when they lived in houses and worked as house slaves to read and write, and others were self-taught. But we do have actual accounts, and they're very interesting because they provide us with a great insight into their lives. Illegal immigration is also a more contemporary human traffic issue. If there's illegal immigration, then that means that there's usually human traffic involved as well. So if it's illegal for someone to come into a country, that makes it profitable for someone else to pay to bring people into the country, so that you would pay a fee, you would enter the country without having to perhaps jump a barrier or a wall. The barriers to illegal immigration are physical, as in this barrier, but they are also barriers in terms of your economic status, your political status, and certainly your ability to move freely. This is ironic because when one considers that the American economy, for instance, does rely quite considerably on people who don't have green cards and who are working illegally, and by the same token, countries in the Central American region, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Mexico, also rely quite heavily on the funds transfers, or the money that is sent back home from illegal immigrants working in the United States. This is an image of a legal immigrant, a Mexican farmer and his family having arrived in the early 20th century in California. Now, why does one legally immigrate? Well, there's two reasons. General overview of your life is doesn't look good, as opposed to the pull, which would be that there are better opportunities in the other country, and that you legally immigrate. That means you have a right to vote, you have a right to work, and you have a right to move around or have mobility within the country. And so this is a good example of legal immigration. Money then runs certainly at the bottom or at the root of almost all of human traffic, whether it's people paying others to bring them into the country or whether we're looking at prostitution. It seems important to me that we look at stereotypes. For instance, here we see Julia Roberts and Richard Gere from the movie Pretty Woman. Julia Roberts is elegant, refined, well-groomed. She has apparently only got one John for the entire month, which makes it less seemly than if she was leaving Richard Gere every night and performing sexual acts with 5 or 6 other men per night. Here we see him exchanging with her jewelry as opposed to money, again making this transaction seem far more dignified. And so we have the courtesan, or we have the call girl escort service stereotype. And of course, if that's the case, then we're going to have a stereotype at the other end of the spectrum. Here we see the street prostitute. These women are anonymous. They are often, they can go missing without any kind of record. They are depicted as being drug and alcohol dependent. One doesn't see them as mothers, sisters, daughters, and so that stereotype is something else that we will examine. And the last thing that we'll look at in our course is the United Nations Millennium Goals for refugees. And refugees are people who have been forced as a group from one country to another, often due to war and famine, which the two are very closely related. They end up in another country that really doesn't want them there, nor are they usually equipped to look after them. So they get put together into camps which have fences, as you can see here, a chain link fence, where medical care, education, and other opportunities are severely limited. And so we need to look at that as well. So this is to give you a brief overview of what we will be covering in our course. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in class soon.